across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh my God, it's Friday. You gotta love Fridays. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and top quality topical debate. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. You know the drill. It's Friday, February the 7th. The weekend starts here. Here's what's coming up. First, yet another shocking decision by a moronic judge as yet another jail paedophile avoids deportation because, of course, drum roll, his human rights. When this monster, who hails from Pakistan, explained that he only assaulted a child because his wife wouldn't let him have sex with her, Britain's fabulous legal system effectively said, well, fair enough, so no deportation. What is going on here, folks? Really, does this make you angry? If not, why not? 0344 499 1000. In other news, Rachel from Accounts' disastrous budget plunges Britain ever closer to 1970s-style stagnation. No growth and soaring inflation, a rancid combination that looks set to cripple our economy. Thanks, Rachel. Nice work. As I just said to Peter Cardwell, it's like we're living in parallel universe. The whole world, the Bank of England, experts, economists, all saying we are in deep trouble. Rachel from Accounts and two-tier Keir, growth, look at it, growth. They won't accept the truth that budget was ruinous. 0344 499 1000. Plus, a small election that could spell a big picture catastrophe for the Conservatives. A local by-election this week in an Essex borough's strongest Tory ward saw the Conservative candidate plummet into third place, eclipsed by the first ever Reform candidate in a stunning victory. I'll bring you the details in a little while. It's going to be fun to reveal them to my guest tonight, of course, my Friday friend, Pete Barnes. More of that later. Also tonight, 2 ludicrous examples of woeful wokery. We need to discuss this. It's getting beyond a joke. If you didn't laugh, you'd have to cry. First, Lego in a gay sex storm. Sadly, I'm not joking. And sailors in saris in a seasick bid to make Navy uniforms more inclusive. Stop the bloody world, I want to get off. Really, 0344 499 1000. Plus, I'll take a forensic look at just why it's going so horrendously wrong for two-tier Keir and his lousy Labour government. Is it that the PR machine of the cabinet is a rusty wreck? And maybe all that lying is simply not a great look. What do you reckon? 0344 499 1000. And finally, Donald does it again, signing an executive order cancelling Sleepy Joe's paper straws only law. They don't work, said Trump. Back to plastic. It's an executive order. No more paper straws, just plastic straws. Because paper straws, and we all agree with Donald, they just don't work, do they? They're all floppy and you can't get the drink through them. So, you know, OK, maybe not very good for the environment, but, you know, whisper it quietly, I don't care. Nor do loads of people, so good old Donald's done it again. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday night together. And as I indicated a little earlier in that monologue, with me for the next couple of hours is my Friday friend, political strategist and consultant Pete Barnes. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Kev. How's it going?
Oh, very, very well. So we will have a little row about your...
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this all day, actually. Since you texted me about 9 o'clock this morning, I think, look at this one, look at this one. Oh, I've been gearing up for this, I'm not going to lie.
Well, at least I gave you forewarning.
Yeah,
you know, it's not the kind of election that you would normally notice, but I happen to know someone in that area. I did think you will admit it's interesting.
Yeah, so, it is. I mean, the council elections that have been happening in the background have been fascinating, and it has annoyed me how they've been rather slept on by a lot of people, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
We'll get to that. Let's first of all, I'm just getting so sick of this, and I know everyone else is. So for some reason we can't name this piece of work, this semi-human, but it is yet another shocking decision by our legal system. So here's the story, folks. A Pakistani paedophile has successfully avoided deportation after explaining that he only preyed on children, assaulted children, because his wife had COVID and wouldn't let him have sex with her. He was jailed for 18 months, told he would be returned to his home country, of course, as soon as he got out, as soon as he completed his sentence. But, of course, in the manner of these things, he appealed. The government, quite rightly, said, well, you know, we're not having any of that, and they rejected his appeal. So he appealed again. And guess what? The second appeal worked. Some moronic judge. This is the problem, folks. We have so many judges in this country, you know, who, first of all, they're kind of Guardian readers. You know, they're liberal to a ludicrous extent, stupid liberals. And secondly, they're just morons. They're just morons. They really are. Don't ever go running away with that idea that learned judges, we've got to look up to them. Half of them are just idiots, absolute idiots, and whoever made this decision, they should go to jail. But they certainly shouldn't be on the bench, that's for damn sure. So he appealed again, second appeal. Guess what? He was allowed to stay because of his human rights. This, frankly, is a disgusting disgrace. And one more story along the same lines. There's a Ugandan rugby star, international, played for Uganda. His name's Philip Pario. He was granted asylum several years ago, claiming that he was gay. And if he went back to Uganda, he said he would face... It's like a kind of trope, this. He would face persecution because of his homosexuality. Well, guess what? He's just been jailed here in Cardiff, actually, for 4.5 years, for raping not a man, but a woman. In other words, you know, people go, oh, we're gay, and if I go back, I'll be persecuted. There's no sort of inquiry, spirit of inquiry. Is he telling the truth? It's just like, oh, yep, you can stay. Now, we've covered, Pete, I've personally covered in the last couple of months 2 other stories of paedophiles, asylum seekers, migrants who were allowed to stay, who became practising paedophiles, and both, when they came out, both sent to jail, and both of them were allowed to stay because of their human rights, because they both had families, right? The first one, he got 2 kids. He got like 4 years, I think it might have been 6 years, for raping children. And his case to stay was that, I've got a right to a family life. I've got my own children. And some judge said, well, that's fair enough, you can stay. Similar case happened again. Now this has got to stop.
Yeah, it is. It seems to me that the judiciary of the United Kingdom is more interested in protecting paedophiles than it is in protecting children. Exactly. And that is it. There is no other way to look at these stories, whether it's these 2 or anything else, without saying that the judiciary and the courts and the systems of this nation are more interested in the rights of criminals than protecting the most vulnerable people in our society. It is absolutely disgusting beyond belief that any of these 2 stories should even exist. This in the first one you mentioned, there was a specialist judge, was the second one, What's so special? I don't understand any of this. And they don't name the specialist.
Yeah,
He's
why
a specialist.
can't we know the name of this guy, this Pakistani monster?
And why can't we know the name of the judge as well? That's another one. You know, it just seems to me that yet again, the entire structure of our kind of asylum system is always to say yes. And what needs to happen is it's got to start saying no, get out. Yeah, exactly. And it's really got to be a whole culture change. And we're seeing this right across many of the legal aspects now. Everything is always geared to, oh, well, yes, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, without saying, well, wait a minute, shouldn't we probably look into some of this stuff? Like the Ugandan gay rugby player, this incident, this really annoys me as a gay man.
Except he's not gay.
Yeah, this really annoys me.
He lied.
Because there are a lot of people around the world who do suffer because of their LGBT sexualities and all the rest of it. And these people are abusing it. So I want to know, where's Stonewall coming out? Where are all these gay charities saying that is ridiculous?
This is the rugby player here.
This is absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
Both of these stories. And for the judge to say in this first one, oh, the wife somehow has some kind of guilt in this? Yeah, look, it is obscene to me. Absolutely obscene.
And also, you know, with the rugby player that we just had a look at, picture there, when people say, you know, I'm a homosexual, I'm gay, and if you send me back to my country, they have medieval attitudes and I will be persecuted, you know, I think they swing the lead a bit quite often on the kind of countries that actually would persecute them. But there are still countries around the world where if you're gay, you have a hard time, like Gaza, for example. You know, Queers for Palestine, the most ludicrous organisation that ever existed, ever in history. Queers for Palestine. Why don't you go to Palestine? See how you get on. They'll chuck you off a car park. But what I'm saying is, you know, there will be examples. There will be times where probably it's fair enough to say, well, this guy's gay and he will have a hard time if we send him back to Mogadishu or wherever. But when we're involved in that process, we should look into it. Yeah. Is he telling the truth?
Yeah,
you know, we can't just keep handing out the right to say willy-nilly just like that. And obviously what's happened with this, I mean, I don't want to indulge in stereotypes or anything, but a great, big, massive, burly international rugby player says I'm gay. I want to look into that.
Yeah, it's at what point did they start claiming this? You know, is it before or after they got arrested? That's obviously the big part of it. But one thing that's interesting, that when the Home Office, when they actually interview these people for asylum, even if they're caught lying, it is not held against them in their application process. This is the entire point, is that it is the entire way that this is structured has to change, because it's always geared to granting asylum rather than denying it. And until we change that, we'll get story after story after story. I mean, in the first one of the reasons the specialist judge said he can't go back is because his family would take a dim view of his sex crimes. A dim view.
I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah. But this is about keeping people safe in the United Kingdom, and this man is a threat to that, so get rid of him.
If it's a paedophile or it's a rapist, and, you know, they committed these crimes here, they came here, we allowed them to stay, asylum seekers, you know, or migrants, whatever. We allowed them to stay, and they abused this country's hospitality by breaking our laws. Not just breaking our laws in the most heinous way, raping women and children. They then serve their prison sentence. We deport them, and if they turn around and say, well, I'll be persecuted back in my home country, here's my reply: I don't care.
Yeah, and I'd remind people that this is costing the taxpayer a fortune in legal fees, because we will pay for the legal defence and we will pay for the prosecution, and it is costing an astronomical amount of money when it's easy enough to put them on a plane and send them back to wherever they came from, because at some point we have to say no. Realistically, I think this real boils down to an argument between, is being British or being a UK citizen here a privilege or just a bit of paperwork? Because that is what we're really seeing really go at each other now, and I think a lot of people will see coming here as a privilege, and too many people are abusing that privilege.
Yeah, well, as soon you know, I don't care what law it is, even if it's shoplifting. If we allow you to stay and you abuse our hospitality by breaking our laws, as far as I'm concerned, you're out of here. Yeah. But if it's a crime like rape or paedophile rape, you are so out of here. I mean, you know, and yet they're allowed to stay. And I think the problem here, Pete, is this. these judges, the judges used to be notoriously right-wing. Now they're notoriously left-wing. They're Guardian readers. And I think they see themselves as the kind of in opposition to the oppressive state.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
And so, that they're going to make a stand on behalf of these poor migrants. So they're always predisposed to a kind decision in terms of the migrant. And, I just think there should be hard and fast rules that judges can't get round. And those hard and fast rules should be, if it's rape, if it's a sex crime, if it's paedophile, no ifs, no buts. There are no excuses that will allow you to stay, end of.
Yeah, I agree, and it's very rare for me, but I'm actually going to agree with Rupert Lowe. He says his three-step policy solution for dealing with these creatures is deport, deport, deport.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't...
There are three solutions.
Yeah, you can't
Which
really...
one do you prefer,
yeah. And, he goes on to say that, if a country doesn't want them, well, we just cut their foreign aid, and I don't disagree with him there. No. I think it's a very sensible policy, because this is about keeping people safe, and the judiciary has shown time after time that it is not interested in doing that. And if they don't want to do it, then do you know what? We get rid of them as well. Yeah. It is about time that we started standing up for the people that are actually coming under attack here.
Do you remember? We're going to do something about the judiciary. This is going off on a slight tangent, but do you remember the Sarah Sharif, the three family court judges who made appalling decisions?
Yeah, which I think we spoke about.
One who made the decision to return Sarah, poor little Sarah, to the custody of her father, even though he had a long history of violence that was all recorded. And this judge, Alison something, I can't quite remember her second name, but she made the decision to hand this poor little girl to her father, and the girl was subsequently tortured to death. So you remember that at first some idiot called Mr. Justice Williams said we can't name that judge because it'll be the subject of a social media lynch mob. So what? And that you can't trust the media to report the story fairly. That's not within your remit, mate. That's not within your mandate. Of course, to be fair, the Master of the Rolls, I think it was, he was the appeal court judge, just turned around and said that was very ill-advised. We named the judges. Justice does have to be seen to be done. Judges can't be anonymous. So this judge was named. So I looked into it. I got a guest on. I think he might have been here last week. And I said, so now what happens to her? Nothing. Nothing. There is no mechanism in our justice system by which judges can be reprimanded, punished, or in any way brought to book.
Yeah, it is.
So in other words, judges, we so ludicrously revere them that even if they make appalling mistakes, in this judge's state, an absolutely lethal mistake, a moronically lethal mistake, there's nothing we as a nation can do about it. I think that if you make a decision like that, you're a judge, you should be sacked.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
They should all, but the judges, like everyone else, like you, like me, while we do our jobs, you always have to be nervous that you do it well.
Yeah.
And if you break the rules, you should be nervous that you'll be sacked. Judges don't have to worry about that because we look up to them. I don't look up to judges because most of them seem to be absolute idiots.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's staggering to me. There's lots of little positions like that in the United Kingdom where there is no consequence to bad professionalism and all the rest of it. It really does have to change. And the accountability of the judiciary, I've noticed, has really kind of creeped right to the forefront over the last few years because of these decisions. And it is flying in the face of common sense and what the public genuinely want to see happen. Who could look at this decision over... say that this first one, to say, like, because his wife didn't have sex with him, he gets to stay in the country. What on earth is going through a person's brain where they think that is common sense?
Well, what about, the paedophile who's got a wife and a couple of kids himself, or I've got a right to a family life.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. In fact, mate, you shouldn't even be around your own kids.
Yeah.
As you quite rightly said at the beginning of this conversation, Pete, what these judges do is they prioritise the human rights of, I don't know, I went to a Starmer.
I know, yeah, you did that.
Human rights. Of course, Keir Starmer, unsurprisingly, is like, human rights lawyer. But seriously, they prioritise the human rights of these monsters, these rapists, these paedophiles, over the rights of the people who live here, the citizens of this country, the residents of this country, and their children. These decisions endanger children. They endanger women. And that is just perverse. It is sick. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. My proposal, and Pete agrees with me, doesn't often happen, but yeah, it has now. No, actually, we do usually agree on
Yeah,
most
I'm going to say we
things.
do agree on a lot, actually.
My proposal is that we don't allow judges to prevaricate. That if somebody goes to jail, I think for any crime whatsoever, when they come out of jail, if we're talking about asylum seekers, migrants who come over here, if they go to jail for anything, that means they've committed a serious crime, because when you go to jail, that is not a light crime that you've committed. You go to jail, as soon as you come out, you are deported, no ifs, no buts. If you want to be a little bit more liberal than that, characteristically I don't want to be, but if you want to be a bit more liberal than that, sex criminals, people who rape children or women, that has got to be no ifs, no buts. The moment your sentence is finished, you're on the first plane out of here. What do you think, folks? 0344 499 1000. And we're going to break now. When we come back, Pete, we better talk about stagflation. As I said earlier, it's like we're living in parallel universes. Everyone else terrified about what is happening in the slipstream of Rachel from Accounts' dreadful budget. Rachel and Keir Starmer somehow or other still treating it like some kind of triumph that will lead to growth. It won't. I mean, this is really worrying. That they've got blinkers on and they can't see what's happening. We're careering down a freight train. Well, this is a freight train careering down the track, and it's going to crash. And the government doesn't seem to realise that. So we'll talk about that after these messages. Stay where you are.
So you have more of an international welfare state. And I think that the Conservatives have a great deal to answer for, especially in the last parliamentary term. Immigration skyrocketed to unprecedented levels. And Alex, all too often we were told that our immigration system attracts the brightest and the best. We have a rigorous, highly selective immigration system. And that is what people wanted, especially those who voted for Brexit back in June 2016. That was not the immigration system that was introduced.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Pete Barnes, political strategist, consultant, manic Tory. He's the last person. He's the last person on the good ship Conservative. We will talk about that in just a little while, but I think here's something we can really agree on, Pete. As I said earlier, we're going to talk about stagflation. I think I've got the Daily Mail here somewhere. They've got it on the front page. Of course, I've got a massive stack of papers here. I bet you... Oh, no, I have got one. OK, so if you're watching... on YouTube or TV, there you go, that's the Daily Mail. New era of stagflation. And that is extremely worrying because in the 1970s, basically, this country sank because of stagflation. And what it means is stagflation, it's a toxic mixture of sort of economic stagnancy and inflation. So no growth, or next to no growth, zero growth, and soaring inflation. Back in the 70s, inflation was up around about 20%.
20%, it topped out 20%. Yeah.
But I think we're on about 4% now, and it is rising. It is rising, and despite Rachel from Accounts and Two-Tier, constantly, growth, we're committed to growth. You can't just get growth by saying it all the time. But that growth, well, the Bank of England today said basically over the next year there will be, in essence, sod all growth. If you're lucky, 0.75%. Yeah. If you're lucky. That is essentially no growth. Plus, inflation's at 4.5.
It's now topping out at 3.7%.
3.7, but it's rising.
Rising, yeah.
So what we've got here is the classic stagnation scenario. It's a rancid combination, and the Bank of England is warning that something has to be done. Economists are warning that something has to be done, and Rachel Reeves has still got her fingers in her ears. I think, Pete, because she's a juvenile politician and she will not face the facts, or she's scared to say, do you know what? That budget, I think I screwed up. We need to do something. She's standing by the most catastrophic budget of modern times, a £45 million tax grab. Meanwhile, this government giving huge pay rises to the public sector. This government believes prosperity, economic prosperity, comes from the public sector. That is insanity. It doesn't. So they're taxing the hell out of the private sector, industry, small businesses, big businesses, and individuals. Trust me, I paid my tax this week and I'm still crying. And they're taking all that money from the private sector, private individual, and they're giving it to the public sector. Now that is a recipe for economic disaster, absolute catastrophe, and we've got a government that won't face up to it.
Yeah, I've said this before. The most dangerous thing about progressive politicians is they never admit they got things wrong, and I think this is where we are. From Accounts, I really do believe that I think she's now an economic threat because, like you said, everybody is screaming at them, you've got to change course, and they are refusing to. The goal of them to stand there and say, budget for growth, I just don't understand it. And then when she said in a press conference she wasn't quite satisfied with the growth figures. Satisfied? That's just, it just makes no sense.
There's essentially not growth figures,
It is absolutely insane that we are in this situation. Don't get me wrong, the economy has faltered for a very, very long time. But that budget pushed things right over the edge. And Keir Starmer is standing there saying like, oh no, it's all fine, it's all fine. Well, there are rumours actually circling around at SW1 that there is a reshuffle coming.
SW1 is Westminster, folks.
Yeah, so it's
from Westminster.
Inside the bubble, inside the bubble.
Yeah, the bubble boy here. He thinks that everybody knows what SW1 is.
That's a nickname that's not going away anytime soon. Anyway, so there is a rumour that she's actually on the outs.
Interesting.
And now, but the more interesting thing is who they're going to replace it with. Yvette Cooper. So yeah, I know. So this is
good. That's interesting.
Yeah. And that Pat McFadden will move to the Home Office because McFadden is seen as a bit of a Starmer loyalist. So that's what's in the rumour mills of the pubs around Westminster at the moment. But
the slight. I mean, that all makes sense. I mean, in a sane world, in other words, not the world of politics, you would be getting rid of Rachel from accounts now because she's screwed it. She's messed up. But you know the way prime ministers are, to sack your Chancellor of the Exchequer is to concede that you have made a massive mistake. So if he sacks or shifts Rachel somewhere else, it will make him look very bad. So her job is probably secure for all the wrong reasons.
I slightly disagree because I don't think the normal rules apply to Keir Starmer because most prime ministers will be concerned about the state of their polling, the state of his personal favourabilities and all the rest of it. He doesn't seem to care. So I actually think that, you know, he might just do this because he's already, I think it's 23% or something like that in the polls. So yeah, why not do it? You know, they can't get any worse, really, can it, for him? But it's fascinating from that perspective. But on the economy, you know, since lockdown, the number of people that now work in the public sector has gone up by 500,000 people.
Well, Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, also said today, folks, if you didn't notice, that another thing that was like, you know, it's the equivalent of concrete boots. The mafia putting concrete boots on people and chucking them into the ocean and they drown. Well, the other concrete boots around our economy, around our already tanking economy, is our grotesquely bloated public sector. It's stifling growth, if I could put it that way.
Yeah, and to carry on with your analogy, the rocks in the pockets of the economy are the OBR's forecasting, which is due in March, and then you've got the spending review in June. So we're looking at spending cuts, or, you know, we're looking at more borrowing. But given the state of the borrowing and the bond markets at the moment, that's not going to happen. So we're now going to have to see the Labour Party try and cut back on a place where it's just gone insane. This is all of Rachel Reeves and the Labour government's own making. Every single bit of this, because that budget shoved everything further down the road. It is absolutely incredible, just in the state of this economy.
It really is. Let us know what you think about the economy and what Rachel Reeves has done. That budget, I mean, it must have affected, if all of you are working, must have affected the hell out of you. It certainly affected me a lot. If you've got a small business or a big business, I mean, you know, I still don't get it. I mean, these people, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, are just gaslighting the nation. You can't come in and just hit us with the biggest tax grab, £40 billion in history. It's the biggest tax grab ever in this country. You can't do that and then say it's a budget for growth. You know, it's like sort of Tranmere Rovers saying we're going to win the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's in some sort of fantasy land. So what do you think, folks? I mean, what should we do? Should Rachel from accounts be sacked? Perhaps she could go back to that call centre she used to work in.
Yeah, she probably was better.
I'm an economist. I'm an economist.
Yeah.
Did you see her on Good Morning Britain?
Oh,
was it
God,
last
that was
week?
painful.
My friend Richard Madeley never misses the chance.
No.
He's very funny because she thought she was out of the woods with that. He goes, oh, yeah, but is this the first time you've been on Good Morning Britain since you lied about your CV? So I think it's legitimate we ask you. She just doesn't lie. No. He goes, why did you lie? Why did you say so? I'm an economist. Why did you say you worked at the Bank of England for 10 years when you didn't? I'm an economist. It was excruciating. We're actually going to be talking later in the show, Pete, about this sort of the problem with Labour. I think it bears discussion now. This week, Keir Starmer, I don't know if you noticed, but he secretly went to Southport. We'll show you the picture a bit later. He secretly went to Southport to meet with the relatives of some of the victims of that horrific murder up there, triple murder. And they tried to keep it secret. We found out about it, and reported it, and they went berserk. Number 10 down, were furious. You know why? Because they're socialists, and socialists think they control the news agenda. Well, you lot in that, you useless people in the number 10 communications department, I'll tell you who controls the news media. It's people like me. It's journalists. It's not you. And you found that out this week, didn't you? You tried to keep a cap on a visit by the Prime Minister to Southport, where, by the way, the people hate his guts.
Yes, they do.
Mind you, I mean, everybody hates his guts, so no difference there. No, seriously, they especially hate him in Southport. They tried to keep a cap on it. When we found out, got a picture, they went mad. Why, this is irresponsible. It's not irresponsible. No. It might have been if we'd have done it while he was still there. I can see the security.
Yes, yeah.
But he'd gone. It wasn't irresponsible. No. You know what they remember? In Southport, they remember just after that horrific day, those horrific murders. They remember him coming up and perfunctorily chucking a bunch of flowers on the pavement. Wouldn't talk to anyone, did a U-turn, got back in his limo, went back to the airport, flew back to London, went directly to Number 10, where he hosted a celebrity party to celebrate his election victory. That was an appalling look, and the people of Southport noticed. They hate him there.
Yeah, they do.
But anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that later. I think it bears discussion. Rakib Basin will join us as well. And I want to talk about Islamophobia as well. Labour, they were a new definition of Islamophobia. I've got a proposal for Islamophobia, the word. We eliminate it. It didn't used to be a word, doesn't need to be a word. Get rid of it. Because it will lead to racism, if you want to know. So we'll be talking about that much later in the show, but I look forward to that. When we come back, we'll do my little exclusive about the local election up in the borough of Tendring, which is in Essex. Stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just having a drink through a straw. It's plastic. You know, those paper straws, they don't work. As Donald Trump said, actually, these are paper straws because this is News UK headquarters and we want to save the planet. But it's very much a thing in Britain now, paper straws. And Joe Biden absurdly issued a diktat, a national order that only paper straws would be allowed in America. So in the latest of his blizzard of executive orders, Donald Trump has signed a new one to say back to plastic, no more paper straws. So why are you doing this, Mr. President? They don't work. Paper straws don't work. He's right.
He's right.
He's
He's
right.
100%
He's
correct.
right. He's right. I say sod the planet. I want plastic straw. I want to drink pleasantly. So thank you very much, President Trump. Are you allowed to say that, sod the planet?
We're about to find out.
Oh dear. I hope Ed Miliband isn't watching. Actually, I hope he is watching. We should have put that into the equation. We'll come back to that because the other thing that's tanking the economy is his net zero insanity, and he is now crapping it. He really is, because he's telling all the other ministers, I need to get energy bills down. He promised that his net zero lunacy would bring energy bills down. They're soaring, and they won't be stopping going up, folks. So that idiot, he's on his last legs as well. Suddenly he's in favour of the third runway. Did you
It's amazing, that, isn't it?
Yeah, what a hypocrite.
Yeah.
What a hypocrite. In what way is that? Hey, Ed, crazy Ed, in what ways is the third runway, more aeroplanes, gas fuel or whatever the hell it is they use, in what way is that? Does that help the environment? I thought you were the net zero secretary, but suddenly you love the idea of planet-destroying aeroplanes coming down in their droves onto the third runway. You are a hypocrite, and you're a useless one as well, and you're mad. Let's. So my little exclusive is, and I want to put a shout out to Mike Bush, who's a Reform councillor in the Essex area. And when I was in Barbados at Christmas, I'm jet.
Oh, how the other half
He was in the next room to me at the hotel. We struck up a conversation, and so he's kept me in touch with politics up in the East Anglia area. And he sent me today, this morning, the results of the Bentleys and Fratting by-election in Tendring Council. Now, in the last election, this ward, Tendring Council, by the way, is one of those councils. There's no real controlling party. No. So they've sort of split it. But this ward, Bentleys and Fratting, was solid. It was the strongest Tory ward in the entire borough. And so this by-election, I'm not quite sure what caused it, but there was a by-election the other day, in fact, 2 days ago. And the result was that there wasn't a Reform candidate in the last election there. The result was, Labour absolutely slaughtered, fourth, last place, 3.2% of the vote, down 7.7%. You'd expect that. Yeah. And it's not a Labour area, really. No. Now, the Conservatives, who held that ward very strongly, they're down 31.4% and only got 17.1% of the vote. So they're down from first to third. The Lib Dems gained nearly 17%, so they got 34.4% of the vote. And for the first time in this ward, a Reform UK candidate stood, Amy Louise Katecha. And Amy Louise stormed it, absolutely stormed it, got 45.3% of the vote, in from nowhere, straight to number one. Now, you could say, well, that's a tiny little borough, a tiny little ward in a borough up there in East Anglia. But, the pollsters would look at stuff like this and they would extrapolate it.
Yeah, we do.
Now, if this, if this picture starts to spread around the country, and answer this question intelligently and sensibly, Pete, that would spell trouble for your beloved Tories, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
of course it does. These elections have been going on since the general election in the background, and they've been a mixed bag for the Conservatives. They've been abysmal for Labour, and the Lib Dems have done relatively well. But Reform, I won't take this away, and I've never taken it away from Reform. They have stormed this. They've got the momentum behind them, and they are doing incredibly well. However, I am going to put my Tory hat on, and I'm going to put my strategist hat on. This comes the however is that, yes, this is just one, and we need to know why this by-election happened, but it is interesting that it's in this bit of the country, because this bit of the country is the Brexit birthplace. This is a real kind of
Farage country.
Yeah, but so this is the point. If
I take that point.
Yeah, if they weren't doing well here, Reform would have a big problem. So the fact that they're doing well here is good for them, but it is in line with what we would expect.
So, I mean, but these kind of results, you know, I mean, obviously Reform would make a lot of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to scrape them off the ceiling about this because, you know, a pollster will be able to do stuff with these statistics.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Kemi Badenoch, what happened to her pledge, no policies for 2 years? Suddenly she comes up with all these migration policies. Got herself onto the front page of the Daily Mail. Kemi doesn't usually manage to get onto the front page. Her big problem is she doesn't understand the media.
I will agree with.
That is a big problem, Pete.
Yeah, particularly for the leader of the opposition.
You've got to make the papers. Politics these days is showbiz. You've got to be on the telly. You've got to... I mean, Reform UK are very good at hogging the limelight. And the Kemi, I'm afraid, is not. When she suddenly came out with these policies, by the way, I didn't mind the policies. They were quite good. I think they were a bit dancing around the edges, but they weren't too bad, you know, tightening up on migration. That proves to me she's panicking because, you know, I've spoken to a couple of shadow Tory ministers. This was a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I don't think Kemi's doing very well. And they both said, she's got to come up with some policies.
Yeah.
Now, she said no policies for 2 years. She's been panicked into this.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And speaking to a lot of people within the party, I'll tell you now that feeling is there, that this strategy of not saying anything for 2 years was dumb. Yeah. And I have to admit, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I do think rushing in with 2 feet is also not the way to go. If we look at what policies Kemi came up with, I do think there's significantly more substance, there's a plan behind them, and there's something more to go at. But I will admit that Kemi is just not good in front of a TV camera at the minute, and that needs to change, and it should have changed yesterday. It is ridiculous that she isn't making the headlines as often, but I do think that this kind of constant need to be in the papers, it can backfire on you very badly if you're making it all about you.
I don't necessarily say this as a criticism, but she's very serious-minded.
Yeah.
Look, politics is also... it's a low and dirty business.
Yeah.
Now, what she should have been doing at the ballot box this week in PMQs is going, voice coach, you broke the rules.
See,
she didn't do it.
I have a different opinion on that because I think the public are exhausted of people breaking lockdown rules. I don't think they're surprised by this story, and I think people often forget that all the public view all politicians as corrupt, all politicians as in it for themselves. And I'm sorry, I just don't get me wrong. Keir Starmer should resign. It is contemptible. It is. He's got to go.
You haven't been looking at our switchboards all week.
But this is the thing.
You haven't been looking at our switchboards. Absolutely jammed with people, utterly furious. And no bones about it. Make no mistake, and you'll agree with me with this, when he goes, those rules were broken. Those rules were broken. He broke the COVID laws. There is no doubt about that. I mean, the statute of limitation on COVID laws ran out after 3 years. I think that's a good thing, actually.
Yeah.
We can't want people being prosecuted for that nonsense all these years on. But people were pretty furious about that. She just needs to be prepared to have a low and dirty fight.
Yeah, she does. She needs to start throwing some mud around.
Yeah, exactly right.
She has to start throwing it around.
Exactly right. Let's give her a bit of a break. Let's say she's on a learning curve.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an intelligent woman, and I like the cut of her jib. But she isn't landing any punches at the moment, and she's got to raise her game. When we come back, Pete, we're going to talk about a couple of crazy bits of wokery, which, as I said earlier, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. I mean, they're funny, but I think this is becoming a serious problem, this nonsense. That next, stay tuned.
full-length runway in Britain was built in the 1940s. No progress in 80 years. A third runway could increase potential GDP by 0.43% by 2050.
Could a new runway be built that abides with carbon targets, concerns around noise pollution and concerns around air pollution?
That a third runway at Heathrow would unlock further growth, boost investment, increase exports and make the UK more open and more connected.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's quickly go through these two ludicrous examples of wokery, woeful wokery. You know, we can all laugh at it, but I think this is becoming a massive problem and people are taking leave of their senses. In the Science Museum, one of the world's great museums in central London now, there is a guided tour. Actually, you do it yourself, but it is a tour. And it's called Seeing Things Queerly.
God.
So it's how you see the world through the eye, if you're straight or something like that, through the eyes of a gay person, you know, interpreting the world from the LGBTQ perspective. I mean, God knows what it's all about. Very important, though, of course. Anyway, in this tour, Lego bricks are branded awful. It's called Seeing Things Queerly, and Lego bricks are branded heteronormative. In other words, that they somehow reinforce the idea that heterosexuality is the norm, and therefore that is unfair to the LGBTQ plus, don't know how many letters you have to put in these days, community. Right, so and what is this based on? It's based on the fact that a Lego brick, right, so you got the pins there and then it goes into the holes. So it is that these people in charge of this tour, Seeing Things Queerly, say that sort of represents male inserting into female, a sort of penetrative sex thing, and therefore this is a reinforcement of heterosexuality and, as it says, the male-female binary, and it says that makes them normal. Now, I've got a couple of problems with that. Well,
no, just a couple. Just a couple.
It's insane. It's insane. Yeah. Now, look, it's a family show. But why is penetrative sex only heterosexual?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? You know, seriously. I mean, sorry, folks, but if they're going to be stupid, if they're going to go into these kind of details, so will we. So, first of all, they're seeing something that isn't really there. There is nothing heterosexual, necessarily. Well, there's nothing purely heterosexual, exclusively heterosexual about penetrative sex, is there?
No. And I'll say this on behalf of the LGBT community, something I'd never really do. This stuff makes us look ridiculous, and it has to stop. It has to stop. There's no such thing as seeing the world queerly or anything like that. It is pathetic drivel, and it infuriates me. It actually angers me to a whole new level, because it makes us look like we have no idea what we're doing, like we're pandering for attention, that everything has to be our way. It's pathetic.
Yeah, and then you've got a massive victim complex. They see the pins and the holes and go, that's about men and women. Why? Why necessarily? Now, here's the other thing about it. You know, to see sex in that, I'll tell you a joke, right? This is the way I see it. They're obsessed. They're obsessed with it. No, right. So, guy goes to... all right, folks, this is my audition for a stand-up career. Guy goes to a psychiatrist because he's a bit worried about his mentality, and the psychiatrist goes, OK, I'm going to draw some pictures and you tell me what you see there. So he draws like a zigzag line, and the guy goes, that's two people having sex. And the guy goes, okay. So then he draws a sort of triangle, and the guy goes, what's that? He says, oh, that's a threesome. That's 3 people having sex. So then he draws a ziggly line like that, and he goes, what's that? He goes, oh, well, that's 2 guys having sex. And the psychiatrist says, well, I'll tell you what I think the problem with you is. He goes, what's that? He says, you're obsessed with sex. So the guy goes, well, you're the one drawing all the dirty pictures. You know, that's what this reminds me of, that they look at Lego bricks and they go, that's sex.
Yeah.
I mean, God damn.
It's just... I will never, ever understand people that look at the world this way. Do you want to know why things like Donald Trump happen, why Brexit happens, and Nigel Farage? It's stuff like this, because you come off like you're an obscene, ridiculous individual. It is absolutely infuriating, angering. And I know so many members of the LGBT community that are absolutely exhausted of this stuff and want nothing to do with it. We spend most of our time saying, yeah, but we're not one of those.
But you're indicative. You're indicative. I've got a lot of gay friends. I always have had, because you'll find in life, folks, that I never had kids. So as you get older, all your heterosexual friends kind of tail off because they become rather preoccupied with bringing up their kids. So you don't seem. So I just ended up where all my gay friends obviously didn't. Most of them didn't have kids. Zero. So I've got a lot of gay friends, and they're just like you. This stuff enrages them far more than it enrages me.
Yeah, it does. It does, because you made the key word. It makes us look like victims. We're not victims here, and there's pandering.
It makes you look like a bunch of idiots.
It does, as well. Because there are real issues in the LGBT community. There's a homelessness problem, mental health, there's a drug addiction problem, and yet, this is what we're spending time talking about? Are you kidding me? These people think they're helping the LGBT community. You aren't, and you have to stop.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, folks, you know, as I said, the headline on this could be, I guess, Lego in gay sex storm. I mean, I can't barely come up with anything to say about it, but I'd love to know what you think about this. I mean, as Pete says, you know, obviously this is hilariously ridiculous, but it's also quite concerning that we have a science museum takes this stuff seriously. We have people who came up with this idea, the Seeing Things Queerly tour, who take this seriously, and that's worrying. You can't take that seriously at all. You shouldn't. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. When we come back, I want to talk about saris, sailors who wear saris in the Navy. That's going to be a new thing. We're going to be joined by the excellent Dr. Rakib Asen, and we're going to talk about a lot of things for the next half an hour after the news, so stay tuned, and we will continue straight after this bulletin.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Pete Barnes, political strategist, gentleman scholar, man about town. He's not going out tonight, though, I'll tell you. He was on the Times Radio breakfast show this morning, our sister station. What time did you get up this morning?
About 3 a.m.
3? That's when I got home. So he's tired. Anyway, but he's doing a great job tonight. Now, for the next half an hour or so, there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to be taking your calls in about half an hour, by the way. 0344 499 1000. I've got a lot lined up, but not yet any on the business of Lego. Is Lego a sexual issue in your view? Does Lego discriminate against the LGBTQ community? Because, in effect, the bricks are male and female. They enforce the male-female binary as the norm. And I was just sick of this. You know what I'm saying. Seriously. What do you think of that? I just think, organisations like the Science Museum, they've got to sort of start saying, no, this is ridiculous. And also, I've got nothing, if you want to do this, I don't quite understand why the Science Museum, what's so scientific about seeing things queerly? Not quite sure what that's all about. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that rather bizarre piece of wokery. And in the meantime, as I say, get on the phone. You can send me messages as well, or you can leave a WhatsApp voice note if you like. But primarily, give me a call, 0344 499 1000. And now we would like to welcome to the show, who is always a welcome guest, one of the most interesting voices in modern Britain, if you ask me. He is a social policy analyst, Dr. Rakib Ahsan. Welcome, Rakib.
Evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Listen, Pete Barnes is with me. We were just discussing wokery, and we didn't get to another... well, you heard about the Lego is now in a gay sex storm, so I won't burden you with that one. But I didn't really get round to the other story I wanted to talk about. So before we get on to the business of our day, I'll find out what both of you think about this. The Navy... has today announced that it will allow officers to wear saris as part of their uniform. And the reason for this is to make formal dress in the Navy more inclusive. Now, critics have said, and I've got sympathy for this argument, that the whole point of uniforms is to achieve a sense of common identity. And in the Navy or in the armed forces, I think that's important. And this initiative actually accentuates differences. So what would be your thoughts on that, Rakib?
Well, I think for me, in terms of uniforms in organisations such as the Navy, I think uniformity is the key. It holds the key. I think ultimately what you want to do, you want to cultivate an environment which is based on uniformity, cohesion, solidarity. And I think all too often when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we see these as methods to create a more cohesive organisation. I'm not so sure. I think that we have tradition, heritage, and I think that should be reflected in forms of uniforms for these kinds of organisations. And I think that uniformity and solidarity are the kind of principles which I want to see underpinning how those organisations run, and that includes uniforms and dress code in general.
Yeah, and your view, Pete, what do you think about this? What I don't want to hear from our armed forces is, we want to make our dress code more inclusive.
Yeah.
How about you just go and sort of fight our enemies and win wars?
You're right, and I agree with the good doctor. You know, the greatest lie ever told is that diversity is our strength. It isn't. Unity is our strength.
Yeah.
That is the point. Unity is the strength. And people cohering to one set of dress. Yes, I think it's right that we have bits of heritage and incorporated in, but it is incorporated to within something that everybody wears. That unity, that structure, that support, all acting as one is more powerful than this kind of dividing everybody up. And that's what these policies do. Anything that says the word inclusive means exclusionary. That is the point. It is this double speak that we continue to hear around the entire diversity industry. It's got, again, stuff is having real world consequences because, you know, the Navy is going to be very busy, I think, over the next few years. And if this is what we're spending our time talking about, then I think we've got a lot of problems.
It should be good for headlines, though. Sailors in saris has got a real ring to it. But yeah, I mean, and also there's something divisive about this because it's only officers will be allowed to wear saris, not the common or garden rank, lower ranks. I'll just put a shout out, folks, audience, what do you think? Should sailors be allowed to wear saris for inclusivity in the Navy? I don't think so, but what do you think? 03444991000. Right, let's get on to the serious matter that we need to discuss, Rakib. I wanted to ask you, it's a big overarching question, but I just think, and it's not just because, you know, I'm not exactly famous for my left-wing views, but I do think that there's something going profoundly wrong with this government. And if nothing else, they have a real presentational problem. Now, this week, actually, was it yesterday, I do believe, might have been the day before, Keir Starmer secretly returned to Southport to do a decent thing, actually, to talk to the victims, the relatives of the victims. But he kept it under cloak and dagger. He kept it a secret. And when we found out, we got a picture here at Talk, Downing Street went berserk. Oh, this is irresponsible. You shouldn't do this. You know, there's the picture. And I just wonder why you think that he goes about things in this cloak and dagger fashion. Why he doesn't quite understand that as a Prime Minister, you can't really move around the country unnoticed. Is one of their big problems the fact that they just don't seem to be able to communicate with the public, and the public are getting increasingly a sense that they're not levelling with us. They don't tell us the truth. Of course, Southport, the people of Southport don't like him. A lot of people don't like him because, of course, Southport was the scene where, when we all thought, hang on, there's these murders. Is there something to do with terrorism? Is there a link? No, you're all far-right thugs. Now, it wasn't just the rioters, the far-right thug rioters, as he called them, the white working-class rioters, who had those suspicions. Many people in Southport, they knew more about it than the rest of us. And they kind of knew that, or they know that he didn't level with us. In fact, I think he told us lies. So it is this growing suspicion that we have a leader and we have a government that doesn't tell us the truth, that treats us like serfs, to be manipulated, but not to be trusted with the facts. Do you concur with that feeling?
Well, Kevin, there's no doubt in my mind that political trust is at an all-time low. It's rock bottom. And I think that if you see the reaction of the government to that horrific Southport atrocity, where 3 little girls were murdered at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class, I felt that the Prime Minister's initial visit to Southport, he just came across very robotic, mechanical. There wasn't much emotion there, not really interacting with the people of Southport, understanding their sorrow, their grief, and pure shock. And I think maybe that's why he made this visit under wraps, because he knew that how much of a disaster his first visit was. But I think that it's a real problem that, of course, stoicism is a very traditional British trait, but I think that there's certain elements of government that it's just almost a very uncaring and dispassionate approach to when you have these kind of horrific atrocities taking place on British soil. And you're correct, though. I think that there was many people here in the UK, they were suspecting, is there a terror-related dimension to this attack? And then there's politicians, mainstream politicians, completely dismissing this as some kinds of far-right conspiracy theory. Then we later found out that Axel Ritter Cabana was referred to prevent 3 separate occasions.
Yeah.
There's a woeful mismanagement, a woeful failure of our anti-terror infrastructure. So I think that the entire atrocity was handled terribly, and I think that the government's reaction to it fell well short of what was needed.
And I think, basically, Keir Starmer and the authorities, the police, told us lies. But if you wanted to be slightly more generous, let's say they were economic with the truth. And one of the most telling developments during the aftermath of that horrific incident was when the police, the Merseyside police, put out a picture of Ruda Cabana. He was a 17-year-old. We've all seen that horrific picture of him now, where
demonic.
He looks exactly like what you might think a triple murderer might look like, a man who stabbed little girls to death. But when they put the police put a picture out, and don't forget, Keir Starmer was presiding over all this. Make no mistake about that. So would the Crown Prosecution Service. They put a picture out of him as an angelic 12-year-old choir boy. Meanwhile, telling us he was a lad from Cardiff who moved north with his family. It turns out he was the son of Rwandan immigrants. So there was deception. You know, I say they were just lying to us in a way because they didn't trust us. They thought if they told us all of that, then we would, we would all explode and riot and some people did riot, but not because they told us. They rioted because they didn't tell them. I think those riots were largely the authorities' fault for not being straight with the public. Do you agree with that?
I think there was a fundamental lack of transparency. Yeah. Now, of course, I understand that when there's ongoing investigations, there may be a need for public institutions to hold certain forms of information, but I think the idea that if they were more transparent, it would jeopardise judicial proceedings, I simply don't buy into that at all. I think that a lot of this was, you could call it public order management. I think they were very fearful that actually if they were more transparent, they're fearful of the public's reaction. They didn't trust the British public to handle that information in a responsible way. And of course, we did have the riots. We saw the violent disorder last summer. But I think that in order to heal state-citizen relations, I think that the government firstly has to acknowledge that there were system-level failures which led up to Southport. And I think that the Home Secretary focusing on how sharp knives are, kitchen knives are, and then looking at Amazon, well, really, there needs to be more of a focus on our state institutions in terms of how this horrific atrocity was allowed to happen. And I just think shifting the blame onto Amazon and all the rest of it, I think is actually grossly irresponsible governance. And I think there's very serious lessons which need to be learnt from Southport. I think one is, how does Prevent handle cases where there's not necessarily a clear ideology, if it's more unstable, unclear, or sort of mixed ideological motivations? How does Prevent handle that? Those are kind of questions we should be asking. I think there's all this talk about Amazon. I think it's a huge distraction, and actually the government is trying to shed accountability for it. The British state is shedding accountability and not taking responsibility the way it should.
I'm glad you brought it out. It's a really good point. Well, that was just sheer deflection. It's so ridiculous to say. I mean, some of the papers going, the Amazon killer and all this kind of thing.
Ridiculous.
Because Yvette Cooper and Starmer sort of said, right, massive crack, it's outrageous. He bought this knife for £1.70, from Amazon, which he did. But saying, all right, so we're going to make it difficult for kids to buy knives from Amazon. You think that's going to stop that sort of incident? As I always said, and I'm sure, this doesn't make me the most brilliant person in the world, in every kitchen In every cutlery drawer, there are 50 murder weapons. Whether or not you can buy a knife from Amazon is neither here nor there. And I think it's actually close to a disgrace that they tried to make it an issue. That's what they always do. When just down here, the London Bridge terrorist attack where we were here, we almost saw it happen. 2 people knifed to death just down on the by a Prevent graduate, a terrorist. Theresa May's reaction to that was a crackdown on social media. They do it every time. It's either Amazon, social media's fault. It's not social media's fault. It was Prevent's fault. It was the authorities' fault. They deflect away from themselves, and people aren't stupid. They're working that out, and that's what I think is at the heart of Starmer's government's problem with the people of Britain. We feel they've broken their contract with us. They're not telling us the truth. They're not levelling with us. I mean, there's no doubt whatsoever that in 2020 on Christmas Eve, when Keir Starmer called his family friend Leonie Mellinger up to see him at Labour headquarters for a voice coaching session, that broke the rules. That was against the COVID rules, 100%. No, of course it wasn't. Of course the rules were followed. You know, it's just staring us in the face and telling us lies. And I think it's really bad politics. Perhaps Pete's involved in the Westminster game. Am I right, Pete?
I think you're bang on. And the one thing I would say, the reason Britain is in the state that it is, and particularly looking at it from the Labour perspective, is that the Labour Party do not trust the general public to make the right choice. It's not just in this the Southport incident. Look at the increase of the nanny state. It is that they need to live your life for you because they know better than you. It is the patronising and the sense of bigotry of low expectations and all of that stuff combined into one political party. It's the classic do as I say, not do as I do rule seems to be very clear in the Labour Party at the moment. But it is that kind of, don't worry, we'll run your life for you because you don't know how to do it. Yeah. And it won't work.
Typical socialist.
Yeah, it really is. It's just the paradigm of socialism. It's ridiculous.
Rakib, we're going to go to break now. Do you mind hanging on? There's another question I want to ask you. Is that cool?
Don't mind at all.
All right, mate. Great to talk to you, and we'll resume this conversation after this break. Stay tuned, folks.
So we need to get back to basics. When someone turns up here illegally, you've got to send them straight back, Mike. And if you find someone on the streets, you've got to send them straight back. You've got to do that really, really quickly and not mess about. And we haven't. We've created this bureaucracy, this machinery, which enables lawyers to get migrants into a bureaucratic process, and delay for them is victory. The longer they can delay the case, the more likely it is that person's going to get to stay in the end, no matter what they've done.
Exactly right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're still with Pete Barnes, of course, and also Dr. Rakib Asen, social policy analyst. Rakib, something worried me this week. A guy in Manchester set fire to the Quran as some kind of protest. He was ripping up pages. Got arrested, and he's been convicted now of a racially aggravated hate crime. And I don't think that burning a religious tract should be an offence in this country. In fact, it isn't. We got rid of our blasphemy laws in 2008, and about time too. They're medieval. There are certain people, particularly in the Muslim community, that want them back. Well, you can't have them back, and yet it seems now we have police forces that kind of get around that and are going to do people for burning the Quran. I wondered whether he'd get done for burning the Bible or the Jewish Torah or something, but that's not the point. I think you should be able to. I'm not advocating it as a great thing to do. It's not a very nice thing to do. You should get yourself a better hobby if that's what you're going to spend your time doing. But it should be legal, and I think the fact that Manchester Police contrived to find a way of making it illegal to burn the Quran is very worrying. And in the court case in Manchester Magistrate Courts, there was a victim's statement from a Muslim guy who basically said, I was very, very offended by this. You can't do this to our holy book. And therefore, you know, this guy must be punished. Well, you know, I don't celebrate that guy's offence, but I'm sorry, you have to suck your offence up. It's not against the law. This is a bit of a worrying development if we're going to start convicting people for setting fire to religious tracts.
Well, we had blasphemy laws that they were essentially removed in England all the way, as you say, Kevin, back in 2008. So I think for me, I think the act of burning holy scriptures, holy books, I consider that to be sacrilegious. That wouldn't be any surprise. I have a Muslim background. I'm a social conservative. But I think that at the end of the day, you go by the law of the land. And I think that the issue here is that it seems very deeply confused at the moment. We don't have blasphemy laws in place, yet this particular person was arrested by Greater Manchester Police. And I found it quite interesting as well that Greater Manchester Police on X decided to state this person's name and date of birth as well. I'm not sure if that's the normal procedure. So I think there's many things in terms of how this was handled, which was very peculiar. I come from this from a slightly different angle. I actually think if you were to ban it, I think it'd happen more often. Because I think that I actually think that people feel, well, actually, I don't like that very much. And I think their rebellious instinct would come into play knowing that it's banned, and then it would be more likely. So people who don't want to see these burnings take place, in my view, I think we should be talking more, try and understand why the book means so much to you. Why does it do so? And you do that through interfaith dialogue, community conversations and all the rest of it. But I think if you were to legally ban this act, I actually think it would happen more often, in my view.
That's an interesting point. But yeah, of course you're right. It's sacrilegious. But sacrilegious acts in this country, in a Western democracy, I don't think should be illegal.
And I think the point as well is that the way this incident was handled will only empower those who believe that ultimately there is creeping Sharia-inspired regulation in the public sphere.
Yeah, that I guess, as always, you've articulated what I was trying to say probably all along, that it was kind of a Sharia law in all but name, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that the idea that by banning it or arresting this particular person, this will be a net benefit for community relations, I'm not so sure.
Kind of one last point, again, kind of overarchingly on the same kind of issue. I'm concerned about Labour's ongoing bid to redefine the word Islamophobia. I'm not sure it should have even been a word ever. And all this effort that goes into defining it, what that is aiming at. First of all, on a real crude, low level, this is all about Labour coveting the Muslim vote. They need those 4 million votes if they were to have any chance at all at the next election. So they want to be nice to the Muslim community, so they want to enshrine all sorts of aspects to this word Islamophobia. Now, what worries me about, and that will please, shall we say, a lot of fundamental Muslims in this country, the more extreme Islamic, the followers of Islam. Not necessarily very extreme, I'm talking about fundamentalists, but it will also please the extremists, and the extremists are the ones we have to worry about. What worries me, though, about this is for example, my personal view is the burqa demeans women. I don't like it. I don't think they should have to wear it. I was on vacation recently. I saw some poor woman, I was in the Caribbean, some poor woman having to go swimming, in this full burqa. It was just ridiculous, And I just thought, why, these guys, her husband's looking, yeah, off you go, and he's in his swimming trunks. It's like, come on, this is wrong, but that's just my view. And if people don't agree with me, then that's fine. And also, I think the burqa brings about identification problems in our modern world. Criminal problems, all sorts of problems. Now, they're banned in France. I personally think we should ban them here. That's my view. Others don't agree, that's fine. What worries me about, and I guarantee you this, the new definition of Islamophobia will make what I just said a hate crime.
Well, Kevin, I'll make the point that the burqa is also banned in Muslim majority in a number of Muslim majority countries as well, based on security considerations. I had a huge problem with the APPG on British Muslims' working definition of Islamophobia. I think that there was a dangerous conflation between very real forms of anti-Muslim discrimination, which we should stamp out of British society, and perfectly legitimate criticism of religious doctrines and their social implications. And I think that's a very dangerous conflation. I think that it represented a fundamental assault on freedom of expression, and also academic freedom as well. So that there was one part of the definition which says that you can't question the loyalty ties of British Muslims. Now, there was a poll back in 2020 which showed that 2 in 5 British Muslims believe that their own co-religionists in the UK tended to be more loyal to Saudi Arabia than the UK. So that's the British Muslim opinion there, 2 in 5. And I think that when it comes to matters of cohesion identity, British academics, British scholars, they should have the freedom to explore those kind of issues, irrespective of whichever community that they're looking at. Because I think if you want to really have a properly integrated, cohesive society, you need to understand what's going on in different communities in terms of how they feel towards the UK, how they feel towards other countries, in terms of their loyalty ties. And I think that we have a rich tradition of that academic freedom, and I think I don't want to see that curtailed through what I'd consider to be an oppressive an anti-freedom definition of Islamophobia. I personally I prefer using the term anti-Muslim prejudice.
Yeah.
I want to, and in my view, there are cases where there may well be anti-Muslim discrimination in the labour market, in the private rented sector. Let's address that, because then you can have practical material improvements which have a genuinely positive impact on the lives of British Muslims. But in my view, we have a rich tradition of also dissenting against organised religion. And I think that should be maintained. And I say that as a social conservative because I think that's a cornerstone of an advanced democracy.
And also, if you want to mock a religion, you know, sort of Charlie Hebdo, but dare I say it, again, I'm not advocating. Let's all go out there and take the mickey out of the prophet.
Kevin, there's many things that I find utterly grotesque.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I don't have a right to demand that every single thing I find to be grotesque, that should be outlawed.
Exactly right. And I worry the direction of travel here, I really do, that freedom of speech is at risk and freedom of expression. Burning the Quran is a freedom of expression issue, and probably should have mentioned this before, but racially aggravated incident, what's racial? What is racial? You know, Muslim is a religion, it's not a race, is it? Rakib, what a pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long. Come on again very soon. Great stuff. He's good, isn't he?
He's brilliant. One of the great minds.
Yeah.
He really is.
Your thoughts, by the way, on everything we were saying. The right to burn the Quran, the right to mock Islam if we want. It's all at risk.
It is, and you know.
By the way, also the right to burn the Bible as well. Not
all
just
of it.
picking on.
And I think, but this is the thing: is that we have elevated Islam to a kind of you can't talk
Exactly.
about it. It is the elevation, the separation. So this is a special thing. You know, that is the real danger here. And you know, you are perfectly right to bring up the kind of grubby nature of this, and it is to do with politics. It's the fact that Jess Phillips has backed down from the grooming gangs because she needs the Muslim vote.
Yeah.
Angela Rayner has backed down because she needs the Muslim vote. You know, there is a real grubby nature to this that the Labour Party will never admit to, but it's right there.
And they're caving in to extreme. Extreme.
Well, the Labour Party have a long
Islamic
history of this, of caving to Islamist mobs.
Yep.
You know, it is absolutely ridiculous. But welcome to modern Britain.
Welcome to modern Britain, folks. Let me know what you think about all of that. 03444991000. When we come back, I'll read a few of your messages, and we'll go to the phones. So stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Go to the phones in a little while. By the way, I was just going to read out, I don't know why this is my favourite message of the night. Talking about, like people, I'm offended. You can't do that. That's offensive. I'm offended by that, as if that means you can't do it. Yeah, you can. It's not against the law to offend people. I'm not encouraging it, but if you happen to do it, doesn't really matter, and they have to suck it up by law. Too many people think that to be offensive is to break the law. It isn't. To wit, Andrew from Herne Hill has sent me this message. I'm offended by the Rubik's Cube because I've never been able to do it. Don't know why that made it good for you, and it's funny. Right, we'll go to the phones in a second, but in about 25 minutes or so, it is time for my fabulous TV show, What Just Happened? And that will run from 9 p.m. until 10 p.m. Here's a little taster.
You could pull strings to get some Billie Eilish merch. You could get online.
But the point that you make is absolutely right. But it's the sultans of spin, the PR people, who are to blame for this, because they would know the backlash in the current climate.
I'm going to pull you up on that, Andrew. She will not listen to anyone.
What was that?
She will not listen to anyone.
That's the thing.
Yes. That's a pretty crap joke. It was a crap joke, wasn't it? But I made some brilliant jokes, so you've got to tune in. We were talking about Meghan there. They've seen this awful video she made cashing in on the LA fires. Oh, look, I've got a T-shirt for a girl who lost her house. Poor, distraught 15-year-old lost... get your Kleenex out. She lost not only her home, but also her Billie Eilish T-shirt that was destroyed in the washing machine. And guess who got her a new one? It was the Angel of Mercy, Meghan. Oh, yeah. So taking the LA Inferno and turning it into social media content. Well done. Well done, Duchess. Nothing tone deaf about that. Anyway, that starts in just a little while. 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock. Enjoy. It's very funny, and even though I say so myself. Also some serious stuff as well. So tune in. Right. In the meantime, let's go straight to the phones. Actually, I'll read some messages, more messages in a minute. New caller, love a new caller. It's Andy in Essex. And Andy, you want to talk about Lego?
Yeah, the Lego.
Yeah.
Well, does that also mean that things like car keys are not LGBT compliant?
Well, you mean, yeah, I mean, probably.
You got to insert something, or electric plugs.
I mean, we're going into sort of slightly dangerous territory for a family show, but as I said earlier, you know, these are the people behind the Seeing Things Queerly guided tour or unguided tour, whatever it is. They seem to think that because, you know, the bricks insert, the inserting bit is male and the receiving bit is female. Well, why is that only males and females?
It's interesting you say this, because I happen to know that USBs, you know, the bit where those are male and female.
They are,
they're male and female.
Say that.
It's a common thing that one is a male and a female. I think it's a way of differentiating one from the other. That's mainly what it is. But this, don't even get me started. This has got my blood right up.
Does that mean that nobody can charge their phones now if they're LGBT?
Yeah, there goes me.
Did you know, Andy, that the world's biggest tyre manufacturer is Lego? Yeah. That's for Lego toys. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
There you go. You see, you phone into this show, we have a great chat, and you made a very good point, and you learn something. I mean, come on, where else do you get this? This is broadcasting history, it really is. Andy, listen, this is your first caller, but I like the cut of your jib. You call me again, yeah? Andy in Essex there. Let's go to Chris in Cambridgeshire. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Kev. Right, first of all this goes back to a thing called PC, where we couldn't have manhole covers and we couldn't do this and we couldn't... Right, yeah. I'm fed up to the teeth with it.
I think everybody is.
And the sooner those people who are involved in inventing it all join the nearest dole queue, the better.
Well, don't you think, and I'll get Pete Barnes involved in this one as well, don't you think, Pete and Chris, what we need is a President Trump? I mean, he got into office there, Chris, didn't he? Just drove a freight truck straight through wokery.
Yeah, he did. Let's look at the transgender ban from the military, you know, just as one, and he's banned DEI at federal agencies and all the rest of it. It does seem to me that, I agree with Chris, I think we've got to that point now where people are just exhausted by this, because it's gone beyond what it was originally intended to say. Do you know what? Maybe it's a good idea that we don't offend people. Maybe we do change a little bits here and there, which most people are on board with. This has now become diktat, and that's the difference. What was natural evolution of language and changing the rest of it, this is now, you do it or else.
Yeah, the thing is, Chris, I think I sense you're at the same point as me. You know, we've spent the last few years laughing at this claptrap, but it's becoming worse and worse and worse. And OK, it's still quite funny, you know, that there's talking about, you know, Lego in a gay sex drama sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I've had enough of it. Pete's had enough of it. Haven't you?
Well, yeah, but the worst part of it is it's creating divisions.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That's a really good
differences where people never even thought of them.
Well,
it's exactly what you said with the drawings when the chap said to the man that he was drawing pictures.
Yeah, and you know, I'm hazarding a guess that apart from the half-wits behind the Seeing Things Queerly tour of the Science Museum, no one else in the world had ever thought, you know, the problem with Lego is it's homophobic. It's bad for the LGBTQ community. It reinforces that male-female binary stereotype.
And for me, the thing I find most irritating is there are real issues that need tackling, and this is what they're spending their time doing. It is just, it infuriates because it's so self-centered. It's nothing to do with the LGBT community. It's to do with the people that run this thing that want their 15 minutes, and they're doing it on behalf of a community that really has bigger problems to deal with.
You got kids, Chris?
They're inventing a completely new way of being.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of speaking, of thinking, and it just suits them.
Yeah, good point.
To invent it. They're making money somewhere.
Yeah, well, we have to reject it. We've got to start saying no.
We've just got to ignore it.
Yeah, more than that.
I think you've got to actively
because
call it out.
by ignoring it, we've been shrugging our shoulders and laughing at it for a decade or so now, and it is now saturating us, and we get this kind of nonsense. And I think we've got to start doing more than ignoring it. We've got to say no, in the words of Amy Winehouse.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris, thanks very much for the call. Always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. I'll just read it. This is from Stuart. Hi, if Lego is offensive, does that mean pens, keyboards, that was to make the same point as Chris, doors, socks, fuel pumps and trains going through tunnels are as well? If they realised the amounts of things that go in and out... How the hell are they functioning in the modern world? It's true, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it always reminds me of the fact that, you know, on the back of a packet of peanuts, we have this product may contain nuts. You know, there's some point you should just say, how do you get through the day?
So you get these things here. I don't know if you can see it, right? So we have to plug this in. There you go. You can see it. So when we come in, that's so that you could see the mic. So to plug it in. Every time I plug it, I'm offended.
Yeah.
I'm offended. This is offensive to the LGBTQ community. Don't you find it?
Oh, I think it's a disgrace, Kev. I think you're awful.
It's a disgrace. And we're not going to put up with it. We're mad as hell with this. We've had enough of it. The poor LGBT community. Come on, Lego. Raise your game. Have you ever stood on a Lego brick?
Oh, yeah, nah, that hurts. I don't know which was a Lego or a plug.
Yeah, that's why I didn't have children, in case they got Lego and I stood on one of those bricks. I used to do it enough when I was a kid. I never liked it much, actually. I found it a bit boring. Lego. Did you?
Yeah,
Did you?
I did.
See, me, lad, nerd. See what I mean? You bet you like board games as well.
No, I don't, actually. I don't like board games.
We're in tune there. I hate it.
Anybody who says, let's have a game night, no.
My brother was obsessed with board games. He was like the school chess champion, and I hated it all. He's younger than me, but he could piss on me at chess. But we played one game, right? One game. I remember it lasted 9.5 hours. and I beat him, and then I refused to ever play him again.
That's it.
Board games, do you like them or do you not? 03444991000. Don't ring us about that. We will go to break now, and we'll take a few more calls and a few more messages after these messages.
She is proposing a number of things. One, if you're jobless, you're low paid, you've been claiming benefits, then no, you can't settle indefinitely in the UK, and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to then claim citizenship. She's also saying if you've entered the country legally, you're only allowed to apply for indefinite leave to remain once you've been in the country for 10 years, not the current 5 years, and after that you have to wait another 5 years before you are allowed to attempt to apply for citizenship. I mean, I think most people would just be stunned to learn that you can be here for just 5 years.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Liam has inquired, wouldn't the Lego actually be gay because it's men to men? I don't know what that means.
I saw somebody on Twitter said, is Lego trans because they've got both male and female parts?
Yeah.
Are they homogenous or whatever?
I think I've nailed that a lot, though.
Yeah.
They're being heterophobic, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are.
By only seeing that Lego... the penetrative Lego refers to heterosex.
Yeah.
Heterosex. It doesn't, does it? See? People have waited all day for this kind of for this insight.
I stayed awake for this.
Yeah. Not for much longer, you won't. The audience are out cold, let me tell you. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Kevin in Basingstoke. Hello, Kevin. You want to talk about something a little bit more serious than Lego, and I think it's about time we did. Reeves's budget. You think it's okay?
I do think it's okay. I mean, she's got to raise some taxes somewhere. I mean, our public services are on their knees. And if she's got to charge tax employers a little bit more money, I mean, I'd rather it come from them than employers. And also,
Yeah.
I mean, she has got to grow the economy. And
how are you going to grow the economy with a £43 billion tax grab? She stifled, literally stifled. Hundreds of businesses have gone broke because of it or have closed down because of it. You cannot grow an economy when you are charging people astronomical, not just people, businesses as well, astronomical amounts of tax. Do you see what I mean? Growth under this budget is impossible. Do you get that, Kevin?
I do get that, but I mean, you must agree with this. The wealth gap in this country is absolutely huge.
You don't lift up the bottom by tearing down the top. That's the reality of it.
Well, I'm a believer in trickle-down economics. I think if you look after the people with money, the wealth creators, that wealth will trickle down. Wealth creators are the people who run companies, who own businesses. They employ people. If they do well, their employees do well. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, in the 80s, the average CEO earned about, I think it was like 20 times the average worker, employed. Now it's almost 300 times. And also, you mentioned...
I don't mind that as long as they're doing a good job. I'm with you if they're doing a terrible job. And quite often, you're quite right, Kev, you get these CEOs, on astronomical amounts of money, earning about 8,000 times worth more than their employees, and they're doing a terrible job. That's when that becomes annoying. But if the CEO, the bosses, are on astronomical salaries and that business is doing well, ergo the employees are doing well, why would we have a problem with that?
Well, maybe not, but I mean, it does seem like, that boss is not working 300 times more harder than he was in the 80s.
But sorry to interrupt, but that boss is responsible for the entire productivity of the company and the well-being of the employees, and to make sure it's doing everything it has to do to comply within the law. That it might not seem like it's 300 times, but it probably is. The difference between the 1980s and now is that in the 1980s we had these things called small businesses. Thanks to budgets like we've just seen, they have been decimated. So they've all been bought up by these large conglomerates. So realistically, if you don't like large conglomerates, you should hate this budget because it is killed the small business. Business and consumer confidence is at its lowest possible levels that it's ever been. You could track this all the way back to that budget.
This budget, Kevin. I mean, you've got to accept this budget makes growth impossible.
Well, yeah, I did hear your guest mention that that OBR said about what they said about the budget, but also. What I'd like you to, what I want to say is the OBR also said that Brexit is costing this country £100 billion a year. So if we need closer ties with Europe, we need to be in the customs union.
Oh, good Lord,
the other one is I can't remember what it's called now.
Kevin, you do know which station you're tuned to, don't you?
I do realise what station, and one thing I do like about this station is politically, you're completely different to me.
Yeah, you can say that again.
but you do let me come on as
Of course. I mean, I think you couldn't be more wrong if you tried, but you're always welcome. I mean, I like a good debate, and but we don't need closer ties with Europe. We need looser ties with Europe. We need to get the hell out of Europe properly and start benefiting, start cashing in on Brexit. Our problem is we've never had the guts to properly cut the ties.
Which is also what the OBR went on to say, by the way.
Yeah, the OBR said that. And don't forget, Kevin, the Bank of England today said that our prospects for growth are pretty much zero, that inflation is coming our way. We're going to get stagflation. Let me tell you, Kev, you can go on about Europe for all you like, but, that's another argument. But you cannot defend that budget. It has wrecked this country, and we are in economic hell because of it. We're in big trouble thanks to that budget.
Well, you did mention Elon Musk. We need to do what he's doing over there. But
fine by me. Fine by me.
What he's doing, I mean, he's the richest man on the planet, and he's taking money away from the poorest people in America. And also...
In what way? In what way?
Well, he's Obamacare. He's cut back Obamacare.
Why is that? In what way does that take money away from people?
Well, do you know bankruptcy?
That's not taking money away from people, is it?
Well, yeah.
That's economising a sclerotic old medical system.
Well, 50% of bankruptcies in America is down to unaffordable medical bills. And he's also cutting the foreign aid.
Well, you know, that's because in America you live on your own 2 feet.
I know.
If you can't afford it, tough luck. We should have more of that in this country.
Well,
because our benefit system is about to sink us to the bottom of the ocean. We've got 9,300,000 people of working age between the age of 16 and 64 who are not working, and most of them are able to do that because we give them a load of benefits. We should cut them all off.
Well, no, because that includes students and also married couples where the husband works.
Well, we should definitely cut students off.
Yeah, but they don't get benefits.
Well, you just said that includes benefits.
What do you think a student loan is? It's a benefit.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah. Anyway, listen, Kevin, I have this. Ring me again, seriously. I think you've been on before, but we're not exactly going to see eye to eye. But it's fun to spar. You're exactly wrong about exactly everything, but good to talk, mate. Good to talk. Call me again. I've got to move on because the show's nearly over. Kevin in Basingstoke there. I'd love to put out a call to you. What do you think about what Kevin said? That's the other Kevin, not this one. Honestly, not all Kevins are brilliant, you know, and Kevin in Basingstoke is one of the lesser ones. That's not fair. He's a nice guy, but I don't agree with the word he says. Very quickly, let's go to Julie in Manchester. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Kev.
Hi. You want to talk about the pedo?
Yeah, I was telling the lady who, you know, that I'm a survivor of sexual abuse.
Oh, dear, I'm sorry to hear
and, you know, I'm 72 years of age, and it still affects me every day.
No, I hear this story all the time, and, you know, our great sympathy to you, but it's a lifelong affliction if you are the victim of sexual assault, isn't it?
And the thing is, you know, when are we going to start protecting the children?
Yeah, exactly right. We all know it more than anyone. It's an absolute disgrace that we now seem to have an almost 100% system that when we send paedophiles or sex offenders, then these are, of course, asylum seekers, migrants, immigrants, foreigners who've come to live here. When we send them to jail for paedophile sex offences or rape, when they come out, we let them stay. What's that about? As you quite rightly say, Julie, when we let, and Pete Barnes mentioned this earlier, when we let paedophiles out, we endanger our children. What is that about?
Of course we do, yeah. And the thing is, you know, every time I hear about a child being abused, I feel like a need to help them and protect them.
Well, we should help them as a nation. I know what you mean, Julie. Julie, I've got to move on, but thank you for a very good call. It was good to talk. Call me again. Julie in Manchester, and very quickly, Stephen in Cambridge, who wants to talk about Crazy Ed Miliband. What would you like to say, Stephen? We haven't got long.
Well, 22 billion black hole, and he wants to spend 22 billion
on carbon capture. And by the way, there is no 22 billion pound black financial hole. That's a lie.
I know there ain't, but I'm a gas engineer, and his policies are just...
Oh, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Here's the thing about... we've really got to do this quickly. The thing about energy... Ed Miliband thinks we're going to get rid of all oil, all gas, neither. It's just going to be green energy. Energy has to be a bit of everything. If you must have greenery, you're always going to have gas and oil as well. Ed Miliband is just this sort of absolutist lunatic who thinks somehow or other we can be powered just by windmills and solar panels and